I'm Robert.
And you're watching R&R with 1-to-1. So, Robert, I was given this Excel spreadsheet and it's huge. The file is ginormous and they want me to put it in a way so that I can pull data out of it and clean it up and make it a lot easier. Do you have any tips?
Have you tried a pivot table?
No, what's a pivot table?
Well, pivot table is kind of built to do exactly that. It's great to go into a large Excel file like that and pull that data out, specific data that you want to present. I can show you how to do it.
Oh, please, that'd be great.
All right, let's check it out.
Thanks.
Okay, so the first thing we need is our source data. So that's going to be a spreadsheet of some kind. Maybe it was exported by an application, you run at your business, and this is just data that you've been asked to clean up and make presentable, and that's where we're going to start. So you want to familiarize yourself with this source data. Look at the spreadsheet, see how it's set up, see what kind of data you're going to be working with, and in our case, it's an export from a general ledger software and it contains order details from the month of January. Each row contains data from specific orders. So we see things like the date of the order, the customer information, what salesperson and region this order came from. That's good info, it's just a lot of it and it's not very pretty or fun to look at right now. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is make sure your data is in tabular format, and that just means that it is set up so that there's one row of headers at the top that describes the data. If your source data doesn't have that, you'll need to add it. And once your data is cleaned up, you'll want to go to the Insert tab, click the Pivot Table button. That will bring up the Create Pivot Table window, and the first thing it will ask you for is the data that you want to analyze. And in the Select Table or Range field, it should already auto-detect your range as long as you had one of the cells selected inside your dataset before you clicked on the Pivot Table button. The next step is to decide where you want the pivot table to be placed. So in this case, we want to set it up on a new worksheet, so I'll go ahead and click OK. So now you'll see that there's automatically added a new sheet to our workbook here and created a pivot table area. You'll also notice that over on the right-hand side, this pivot table fields area has appeared, which gives you a list of all the fields you can select from your pivot table, and then below there are the areas where you can drag those fields into to create the pivot table report. So let's say we want to create a simple pivot table depicting the revenue of each of my salespersons for January. The first thing I want to do is find the salesperson field, and what I'll do is once I find it, I'm going to click on it and drag it down to the rows area and drop it in there. Then next I want to find the revenue field and drag that down to the values area. What you'll notice when you do that is that over here in your pivot table, you'll see Excel has automatically calculated the sum of the revenue of all the orders for each of the salespersons. And that really starts to demonstrate the power of the pivot table because it can automatically and easily do those calculations for you as you build your reports rather than you having to set them up manually cell by cell. Now obviously we still need to format these values and make them look a little prettier, but that's easy to do. You can right click on one of the cells in the sum of revenue and select Value Field Settings and then click Number Format, which brings up the normal format cells window you should be familiar with if you have ever formatted regular cells before. And we can just click on Currency, leave it at no decimals, and we'll click OK. So you may also want to sort the information. So you can do that by selecting any of the cells in the sum of revenue again and right click, go to Sort and sort largest to smallest, and that will sort the data by the top performing salesperson, which is what we wanted to see. If you're more of a visual person, you can also display this data in chart form by going to the Analyze tab and selecting Pivot Chart, and then insert the type of chart that will work best for displaying your data in a visual way. So obviously there are a lot of different ways to set up and format these pivot tables, so you'll want to go in and play around with them and figure out what's the best way for you, but it's important to see how each of these areas that you can add could be beneficial to you. So take a look at this chart which shows you how each of the areas correspond to the general setup of a pivot table. You can see the rows and values that we already talked about, but also columns and filters, which might be useful to the type of report that you want to set up.
Hey, thanks for showing me that. That was a lot easier than I thought it was. And now I can make multiple pivot tables out of my source data.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of using pivot tables is that you can make them as simple or as complex as you need them to be, and you can make as many as you want from the same spreadsheet.
And it's really going to make my report look great.
Good luck customizing it. Don't be afraid to get in there and really make it look the way you want it to. That's all we have for today. Thanks for watching R&R with 1-to-1.
Stay curious.